Hello, good morning, welcome to Ireland AM. It is Wednesday, April the 23rd. Now, as she entered the final stage of her battle with cystic fibrosis, one of Triona Priestley's last wishes was to hear from her idol singer-songwriter Ed Sheeran. On the 1st of April, following a campaign from her friends, Ed called her to sing her favourite song, Little Bird. As he sang, Triona drifted to sleep and passed away a few moments later.
Triona's brothers Ciaran and Aidan join us now, but before we chat to them, let's take a look back at when Triona joined us at our Temple Street OB in 2012, where she told Anna about the things in life that she loved.
They ask you lots of questions about what's important in your life. Things like what?
My dog.
Your dog, who is?
Trixie. Trixie. Everything to me.
Yeah. And what else? Music?
Music and favourite movies, and I've gone to cinemas a few times with one of the play therapists.
Brilliant.
Guys, I can see you both welling up there. We all are. That's horribly hard for you to watch her because she's gone, but she was the most wonderful, remarkable girl. For those of us who weren't lucky enough to meet her or to know anything about her, what sort of girl was she?
Triona was a very determined young lady. She had a very sharp mind, I would say.
Yes, girl is not the right word. She was a young lady. Yeah. You're quite right.
She had a quick tongue, I suppose, but I suppose it's also important to remember she had a very caring nature, both in terms of her family, her friends, and people from the wider CF community. And
when it came to her CF, how was her life living with cystic fibrosis?
Maybe Aidan?
It begins very difficultly, actually. In the morning she'd have to go through an awful lot of medications or anything. But I suppose even one of the things I always liked about her most now is that she never let that get in the way of anything else that she wanted to do, or even in a part of my life, because anytime I'd talk to her, I'd bring her up little bits from the fridge that she needed, but then it was about how I was, how I did in the day, never about the fact that she had to go through all of it. So, I don't know, a bit tough to say really. Sometimes she was very good at keeping it to herself when she needed to, but it was an awful lot of work for her as well. Same time to get up.
In terms of CF, I mean, there's varying degrees of it, and obviously in the end, Triona's proved to be very difficult. But I think in the notes, one of you said that it appeared that she never seemed to catch a break.
Yeah.
That I mean, that there can be, there can be good periods and there can be bad periods, but she seemed to have a rough time pretty much all the time. Is that accurate? From
birth, if something could go wrong on her, generally it did. And
sorry, what do you mean by that? Or can you give me an example? Yeah,
I suppose cystic fibrosis in some ways is a bit of a vicious circle. If someone is prone to infection, they can keep on weight, which in turn means that they're prone to infection. And Triona never managed to stay fully a step ahead of that. So she was always caught inside that cycle of infection, of losing weight, and that would leave her open to. That would lead her open to infection, hospital stays, invasive procedures, which she had to go through.
And of course that became very life-limiting as well too, didn't it? It meant that she had to be very careful about what she did in case she picked up an infection.
Very much so, yeah.
Do you have to be careful around her then? Like say you had a cold yourself, would you have to stay away from her?
At times, yeah, you would be conscious of it, but no, not to the same extent as our brother Colin would have had to, because they would have been prone to the same infections.
Because of course your brother Colin has CF as well.
He does, yeah. Which
is an interesting, actually, just before we talk a bit more about Triona, I don't know that many people know this or understand how the CF gene actually works, but would you explain that?
Yeah, I suppose 1 in 19 people are carriers of the gene in Ireland.
And we have one of the highest rates of it in the world.
Very much so.
That is the highest rate in the world now. So what would happen as well is if you have two carriers who meet and have a child, there's a 1 in 4 chance that a child has cystic fibrosis, but there's a 1 in 2 chance that they have a child who carries the gene.
Who carries the gene themselves.
Which then goes on to feed the same chain again.
So it's important then for you to find out whether you carry the genes yourselves?
Yeah, I was recently married. I found out that I do in fact carry the gene. My partner doesn't, so it's not an immediate risk for us. Aidan? I
haven't actually done the test yet, but it's something I have to do. If I ever to consider getting married and having children around, you'd need to know.
When you were, I'm sure it would have been discussed many times amongst the family. Of the 4 of you, there was a 50% chance that 2 of you would have it and 2 of you wouldn't. Now, 2 of you were lucky enough not to.
Sorry, 3. We have another brother on.
Oh, sorry, beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Sorry, beg your pardon. How did that make you feel? Do you feel lucky? Do you feel guilty that you escaped, or
No, well, we were never made feel guilty by Triona or
No,
Colin.
I mean yourselves.
Ourselves? No, not really. I suppose we're grateful for what we have in terms of, and I suppose doing something like running a marathon, which pushes your body and your fitness and what you have to the extremes of what you can do, is a way of kind of displaying your pride.
We should
in a
say
way
this
of
is what you're
have.
going to do. You're going to run the New York Marathon.
Yes,
Yeah.
in order to raise funds for CF Ireland and in order to raise awareness of Trina's story in particular and CF more generally.
And you have done a marathon previously,
I've done one in Dublin in 2012, yeah.
and you said you could have trained more, and I
Yeah.
said to you, I think everyone who does a marathon says that. So how is the training going now? I know Aidan is your training partner.
That's right, Aidan's going to train with me up until the 3/4 stage in Athlone, and then in New York I'm going to...
Go off and finish it. Oh,
And
that's when I sit back and take a break.
And no, training's going well so far. We have a half marathon in Wexford on Sunday that we're going to do together. It's something we picked up, like a lot of people in Ireland maybe in the last couple of years. It's not something we've done all our lives, but it's something that we picked up as a hobby, and we've gotten very fond of it in the last few years.
And it'll be imbued with a lot of emotion, obviously, because it's for Triona that you're doing this.
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah.
Can we talk about more about Triona? I mean, she's left an extraordinary legacy. She's your sister, and she will live forever in your memories. But I don't think in your wildest dreams you would have expected her to be making headlines all around the world, which of course is
Yeah.
what happened on that awful, fateful, but also remarkable day. How did the situation with Ed Sheeran come around?
It came about primarily from her friends. They got together and through Twitter they launched a campaign through the Song for Tree hashtag, which then went viral and spread across the world. Then through a third party in The Independent, I believe it was Orla Tinsley, contacted our brother Colin, who would know each other quite well, and Colin actually took the call, which when Ed Sheeran rang through and put the phone on loudspeaker when Ed sang to Triona.
Now, I mean, I don't want you to relive that day, but I mean, that must have been a very difficult day for all of you.
It was a very difficult day, but on a very difficult day, it was a very touching moment, and it was something that we'll have for the rest of our lives, and it's something that will mean an awful lot to us.
Did you know, or did she know that Ed was going to call?
We'd heard earlier in the day that it was a possibility, but we didn't know with time and these things and these kind of things came through.
And was there a sense that she was going to pass that day?
Yeah,
Oh, definitely.
So you
We were
definitely
brought up in the
knew.
morning.
Yeah, we knew that morning.
You knew that morning.
Yeah.
And
So I was going to say, well, when you're as sick as Triona was, when you spend a lot of time in hospital on your own, you know, your books and art and music and stuff like that becomes vitally important. It's almost like oxygen to you. So how important was it? Was Ed Sheeran the sort of the pinnacle of her music love? I mean,
She had, she loved music, and Ed Sheeran was one of her favourite artists. And we did find the bucket list that she wrote.
She did, yeah. What was it? She wanted to be tweeted by Ed Sheeran.
And she was.
And she was.
It went in even a step further than that, to be contacted.
I think
and
we
rang
have
by
to.
him
We
as
have
well.
the tweet there actually, and he just says, "Rest in peace, Triona." So heartbreaking. And I mean, we often read things in the papers, and we never know how accurate they are or not. But he sang to her, and moments later.
Yeah, it was described very well.
And it was your brother who described it. It was actually his press release.
Yeah, which then went. I kind of tracked some of the coverage that went to like New York Daily News and the Los Angeles Times, and they quoted his press release, and it was how we described it. She fell asleep as the song was playing, and
was it Little Bird he sang?
Little Bird.
Yeah. It's an I have been in that situation where you watch somebody pass, somebody very dear, and it's an extraordinarily intimate moment. I don't know how I would feel about sharing it with somebody who, however well-intentioned, was actually a complete stranger. Did you have any misgivings about that, or was it that this is absolutely what she wanted? It was as fitting as you could make it.
I think, given that it was Triona and the whole circumstance, and we knew that what would have taken place with her blessing, we were comfortable with it. Also, the fact that it's attracted so much attention and raised so much awareness of CF, while not intentional, is something that would have sat very comfortably with Triona.
She was very proactive, wasn't she?
She
very much,
so.
Yeah. And your brother Colin now has kind of been thrust into the limelight as a result of what's happened. I mean, I was wondering about how you feel people with CF are cared for in this country. I mean, are we are we doing them a disservice?
I suppose one of the things that Triona was very eager about was to increase awareness of CF in Ireland itself, because it is the most commonly inherited gene in Ireland, or inherited condition in Ireland, and we have around 1,200 CF patients, which is the highest proportion of anywhere in the world. So Ireland in itself possibly could not do enough for this condition.
We had this discussion with somebody else who was involved in it recently, and we were bemoaning the fact that given the country's history, given our, the proportion and our experience of it, that we should be world leaders in terms of the treatment and the research and development, and we're not. And the point was made that that's a disgrace. I don't know, is that a view you would echo or share?
I suppose crucial to any idea of increasing research is increasing fundraising, and I suppose just what little part we can do is by doing a gesture such as a New York Marathon, or we did a head-to-head walk from Hope to Bray last year, and people can become involved in that through CF Ireland on the CF website. But certainly, in our opinion, given our experience, there's not too much that could be done, and we've always put forward the idea of research and funding for CF.
Aidan, how are you all? How's the whole family doing? I mean, there's a lot of you, which helps, so you can all come together.
Well, actually, like that, it's a very large we're a fairly big family, and we all come together when we really need to. So I have to say, if there was something I was saying before, if there was a family it had to happen to, it probably couldn't have happened to a better one, because
that's a great attitude.
I have all my brothers with me there, and my parents with me, and my uncles and cousins.
How are your mum and dad?
They're fine. I mean, as well as you can expect. I mean, it comes in waves, I suppose, more than anything else. But
we've got a lovely shot of you all there in New York, actually.
Yeah.
Just Triona.
With Owen.
So New York has special meaning to you?
Oh, very much so, yeah. Had Triona got a transplant, had she been successful and come through at the other end of it, the first plan that would have been made would have been a trip back to New York. Because unfortunately, in her last 2 or 3 years, she wasn't well enough to travel, and her intention was very much to travel back to New York. So we're going to do that as a family, and
you're making the trip for her.
Yeah, and it's anchored a bit around the marathon, but I suppose it's very much for her.
We have a shot, and it was a very stark indicator of Triona, the young woman, and here she is with all the things that a young girl of her age, all the makeup and all the bits and bobs and all the rest of it, and then another shot of the reality of her life, where she's surrounded by all the medications and all that side of her life, and it really puts into contrast the difference between somebody who's 15, 16 years of age, teenage and healthy, and somebody who is in Triona's situation, the difference. And it's actually very clever. Did she come up with that idea herself?
Yes,
I think she did. Yeah.
I think probably the point of that for her is that one didn't stop her doing the other.
Yeah.
That's the sense that I get from her, that she, regardless of everything that she had to put up with, she still managed to live a life of a teenage girl.
It strikes me she's very similar to Orla Tinsley in that she seemed to be wise way beyond her years.
She's very mature anyway as well, for considering as well that she is 15 years old, and she'd have an emotional maturity beyond my own, I'd say.
and a lot of people who kind of grow up in hospitals or grow up in medical situations, they do that. They have to grow up very fast. Was that her nature? Was it her questioning mind, or was it a combination of just her experience that?
It's funny you mentioned that, because I remember her as a very young child when we were in hospital. She became aware very quickly that if she relayed a message to the doctors through a third party, through an adult, what she wanted done would get done quicker, and for her it was always about the end result. And I remember her telling me to tell the doctor something because she realised it would get, it would be fixed quicker. It's funny that you mentioned that her maturity was something that was, and her perspective was something that was beyond her years.
That's a great shot of you and her there.
Oh yeah, that was in Belfast. We went up to a horse show for the day. She was fond of horses when she was younger. She outgrew that, and then
became a Sheeran.
Yeah, very much so. Her maturity also came out. She was very keen to support other people who had CF, and she, through social media in particular, Instagram and Twitter, she did that, and we became aware of that in the days after she passed, especially so. And what was mentioned to us was that she did speak with a maturity that was beyond her years.
Does it bring you some comfort to see the reaction her story has gotten, and it was carried around the world and it meant so much to so many?
Yeah, and crucial to all that is the increasing of the awareness of CF, because we know that that's what she would have wanted.
And that's why you're heading off to New York to do the marathon. And we had the details up so people can sponsor you
brilliant.
and support you and find out more about CF themselves as well. Aidan, fair play to you for being his training partner.
Yeah, but only left foot, right foot and repeat to keep running.
That sounds so easy. You tell yourself that at mile 24. Guys, good luck. Thank you for coming in, because I know it's still so raw with you both.
Yeah, thank you.
So thank you, and our condolences, obviously.
We'll take a break now. We'll see you back here for more in a few moments.